Good evening. Welcome to this year's budget proceedings. This evening, we're starting off with Otis Library. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So in front of you, we have a couple of handouts. One is our just released strategic plan, and another one is a brochure of the services that we provide. Over the past few months, we worked with the community through outreach and off-site meetings, on-site meetings, surveys, one-on-one discussions about what the community needs from us. And it was very educational for us and for the public of what they didn't know we provide. So it was very beneficial all the way around, and we came up with what we think will take us well into the next 5 years. Some of the things are things that we are already doing, but we can enhance and expand. And again, it's a good educational piece for the public to let them know what we're doing and what we want to do with them and for them. Get it. And then the brochure is just something to refer to if you have any questions. Again, a lot of people don't know all the services that we offer, all the programs and resources. So just for a little background, we know we're in difficult economic times. The future is looking a little bleak. In poor economic times, people turn to their libraries even more. So at the library, you can get everything for free. You get free books in every format, downloadables, print, audio, whatever you need. Streaming services with all the streaming increases for Netflix, HBO, everything. You can stream movies, TV shows, music, and get classes all for free through our streaming services. Our Wi-Fi is free, our internet is free, we have free meeting spaces for community groups, for individuals and groups. And while people are looking to save money in these times, good times and bad, they're also looking for connections, both to resources and other people in their community. Our programs offer a variety of opportunities to learn and connect, from book clubs and financial literacy classes to author talks, free legal advice from lawyers and libraries, technology assistance, and more. We're in a period, too, when people are experiencing profound loneliness. And the Otis Library provides them with space to read, use computers, and simply be around others. We also offer programs both on-site and off-site, helping bridge that transportation gap that we all know exists for some residents and still give them that connection. So we're not only providing free access to literacy, education, and entertainment, but also enhancing the quality of life for our residents. And we're grateful that we are set to receive flat funding for this year. Again, we know it's very difficult this year, so we're very grateful for that flat funding. We also know that it's not set in stone, but we're hoping it is, because while other departments can count on salary increases, even if they're facing other challenges, we don't. We're not union, we're not a city department, so any salary increases have to be absorbed in whatever allocation we're given. We try to be competitive with other libraries in our region for salaries, but the truth is we are offering people with master's degrees and decades of experience a salary that other libraries are offering as their entry-level salary. So our staff are working hard, and they're good people, and they're smart, and they're educated, and they're doing a really good job for our city. And we're grateful that they stay with us. Some have moved on, some have retired, but some have moved on to better paying positions, and we can't blame them for that. But that's something that's a big consideration as we're putting our budget together. We also rely on grants, donations, and our endowment to supplement our budget, but unfortunately they're not sufficient to meet all of our needs. We lean into our partnerships to share resources and save on costs, but we also do more for our partners because we know they're struggling too. So our teen librarian, for example, visits the local middle schools weekly to assist students with writing skills. We're collaborating with the schools on summer reading and STEM programs. Our assistant director recently led a 5-week job coaching program for young adults at the Norwich Transition Academy. where she helped them with job applications, job searching, resumes, cover letters, mock interviews. And we've also formed a collaborative of organizations that offer English language instruction. There's 39 people who attend those meetings. It started as just Otis Library and Literacy volunteers in September, and now we have 39 people attending those meetings. And that collaborative is working really hard and really well together to share resources because we're all so stretched. One key challenge for our funding, however, is that in addition to this new costs, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. Well, personnel costs are our biggest asset, our biggest expense, and the staff is our best asset. So we have to do what we can to keep them and keep providing. The other thing, oh, I know what it was. Our staff, while we're not going to be able to give them an increase in their salaries, they are facing a 10% increase in their health insurance. And that's nothing that we can control. We're also, unfortunately, underfunding our collections. So according to the best practices of the state library, we should be funding $200,000 to our collections based on our population. We can only fund 60 from what we do, and we use grants and other money that we can find to try to make up the difference, but it does not close that gap. If we were to get a cut, that's one of the few places we could cut. The only places we can go are the expenses that we control. As you know, living your lives and we're near businesses, every line item is increasing. We can only control materials, resources, staff, and hours. Our hours are 46 per week right now. For a library our size and our population, we should be at least 53. Any cut to that would be devastating to our community. Our community can't afford that. And the other thing is, just to add insult to injury, it's not an exaggeration to say libraries are under attack right now. Last week, the White House made a directive that Connecticut, in particular, is going to be affected deeply. So the Institute of Museum and Library Services is being dismantled, and 3 states were targeted in particular: Connecticut, California, and Washington. So the Connecticut State Library is supposed to receive $2.164 million from IMLS, and $1.5 million was terminated as of April 1st. And while the state library does not give us money directly, we rely on many of their services that are funded through the IMLS for our people. So those are databases. They are, so it's workforce development databases, it's interlibrary loan, it's professional development for staff, but even just for the public. They'd be losing one of our ebook and audiobook platforms. There's so many things that will be affected by that. There's no getting them back. Another part is we do offer lawyers and libraries for our people, but that program is booked a month in advance. It fills up immediately. So through the state library and IMLS funds, we can offer legal assistance online. That goes away. And as all of these do, and we have somebody who does workforce development on site as part of her job, but also our community is 24/7. We're only open 46 hours. We try to provide things to our people who work 3rd shift, 2nd shift, who can't get here during our normal hours. All goes away. There's another database that we buy that offers 24-hour online live assistance for job coaching and job assistance. Can't afford it. That'll go too. So it's a shame. And one of the workforce development is one of the things that we've been trying to focus on this year. Another thing that we've been trying to focus on is accessibility for services for the blind and the hearing, deaf and hard of hearing. For the deaf and hard of hearing, that would rely on a grant from IMLS. Can't get that either. We are a hub for the Connecticut Library for Accessible Books, which serves the visually impaired and blind with materials, Braille, audiobooks, equipment, multiple languages, all goes away. And we can't replace that. So we need to hold on to what we can. The other thing, there's just one challenge after another with Library World. While we'll be losing the Palace app, which is the ebook and audiobook platform through the state, we do have Overdrive and Libby. However, it's extremely expensive for libraries. So a title that would cost you either $0 through Audible or maybe 15 to 20 through an Apple product costs us $40, $50, $60, or $70 for that exact same title, exact same edition. And we only get it for 26 checkouts or 24 months, whichever comes first. That one title goes away. So we have to buy it again. We can't afford it. You can't develop a collection, a digital collection with that system. So there are bills that are making their way through the House and Senate in the state, but they haven't gained much traction so far. I'm hoping they will, because I mean, you can imagine trying to pay $60 for one for The Women, which was one of our most popular titles last year, and it goes away after 26 checks out. That's got to go in a heartbeat. So everything is a challenge for us, and we know everybody has challenges. So e-materials account for 22 of our collection. The rest of our collection, obviously, is print, hard copy, other physical pieces. And we need the staff for them. We need staff to purchase them, process them, circulate them, and in some cases, deliver them to people's homes because we do offer home delivery and to assisted living facilities. Staff are also critical to developing and implementing our programs. So for the stats perks, I know you guys like stats. From 22 to 23 to 23 to 24, our number of programs increased by 30% and attendance by 113%. Our circulation increased by 51%. So the demand for Otis libraries is clear, and Norwich residents need their library, and we need your support to continue meeting their needs. Thank you. Any questions?
Anyone else? Mike, are you looking to?
No, nothing else to add.
No? Okay. Members, any questions at this time? I should start off by saying that Alderman Nash is participating through the network of TV tonight. He's listening and watching, but he won't be here in person. Hopefully we'll see Alderwoman Hayes shortly. Members, questions? Alderwoman Gould.
Thank you for being here. How many full-time employees do you have, and how many part-time employees do you have?
We have 14 full-time, and full-time our max is 36 hours. And then we have 15 part-time, and that includes 4 per diems.
Okay. And could you go into a little bit about what other agencies you collaborate with?
Oh my gosh, we have a whole spreadsheet. We have a spreadsheet that we update bi-weekly. Lately, I would say our biggest collaborators are Norwich Public Schools and LEAD. We've been working with them on different things for citizenship and for the schools. We're trying to get into the schools and develop summer learning programs. We also work with the Soup Kitchen. We work with UCFS. Many of our staff sit on committees, so we work with other groups that way and as well. Again, the Transition Academy, Norwich Adult Ed, we provide citizenship classes. Literacy Volunteers has free space in our library. I could list all the groups that are part of that collaborative. There's a large number. Who else do we work with regularly? Norwich Human Services is a regular collaborator with us. I could, after the meeting, I'll send you a list.
Okay. What type of grant funding do you receive, and are there others that you could be applying for to help supplement your budget?
We do apply for grants to support materials, programs, And we go to whoever we can. There's individual groups who we apply to. The Connecticut Humanities is a great assistance to us, particularly with children's programs. We have a couple that are in the pipeline for technology assistance, because we definitely want to expand our technology offerings and upgrade our equipment. So those are the ones that we're looking at right now: materials, equipment. Can't find anyone to do anything with utilities or personnel, but we try to hit anything else we can.
Okay,
Even furnishings, we're going to try to get grants for furnishings as well.
and my last question is, do you use any of your endowment funds to supplement your budget?
We do. We use the max that we can. Mike, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, the endowment fund, 60% or roughly a little around that amount is restricted by the donors. So we kind of have our hands tied there, but what we did last year was a pretty good year for equities. So what we did is we took some gains in early December, right before things went down. And we flipped those into U.S. corporate bonds to grab some yield, which increased our cash flow this year about $8,000. So with that 40%, that's available to us, we maximized what we could. I dare to look today to see what they are. I don't want to look today, but maybe in a week or so. But that was one thing I kind of was anticipating this environment. So we did what we thought was right there.
And can you disclose approximately what you use from your endowment on an annual basis to supplement your budget?
Yeah, it's about 32,000.
Okay, thank you.
It's higher than that. That was just this year.
What's that?
It's higher than that, because we also
That's
pull
with the
from
increase. Yeah.
with the restricted endowment and stuff.
I'm sorry.
We pull from the restricted endowment too for materials.
Oh, in 200,000.
That's what you used this year?
Yeah.
And are you expecting to have to use that much next year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other members, questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Right.
And Norwich Public Utilities is a huge supporter of Otis Library. I'm very grateful for that.
Give him a grant, Chris. You don't already.
The next budget up, it's public utilities. It's at the end of the budget.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Starts on page 122.
It's working fine if you want to sit over here. We just never trust technology. Yeah, that right, Josh.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, get started?
Please.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having us today to present our fiscal year 2026 budget. I'm here with Assistant General Manager Jeff Brining and Laura Huron, who's our division manager for the finance team, IT, and the purchasing and stores. So right now, it's an excellent time to be in the utility industry. We're witnessing generational load growth and federal funding opportunities at a scale we haven't seen since the 70s. In addition to implementing a number of grant-supported projects, we're positioned for growth through strategic developments like Ockham Industrial Center, Preston Riverwalk, the cannabis sector expansion, and even potential data centers. We've also just approved our updated strategic plan for the next 3 years. The most significant updates include ensuring we have the right people, resources, and funding to support our ambitious capital projects, and that all our investments are future-ready, incorporating advanced technology and infrastructure that can scale with demand and enhance resilience. Our budget priorities have remained largely consistent with previous years and continue to reflect our operational focus. And that is meeting evolving state and federal regulatory requirements, investing in the replacement and upgrade of aging utility infrastructure, supporting economic development in Norwich, and delivering excellent customer service with a strong emphasis on reliability. And also leveraging technology to benefit both NPU operations and the broader community. These priorities reflect our ongoing commitment to sustainability, service, and progress. Each year, our contribution to the city is calculated as 10% of the gross revenues of electric, gas, and water. Sewer is excluded by statute. While we've seen modest growth in customer usage, our energy prices have stabilized since the 2022 global disruptions, and our payment to the city this year will be approximately $9.3 million. That's down $1 million from last year. But the good news is we are projecting a slight increase next year to $9.4 million in line with anticipated revenue trends. And if any of these major projects come on sooner, that number will be able to go up. Our budgeting approach, Our budgeting approach is guided by conservative revenue projections for this fiscal year. The projected revenues are $116 million. Our total expenses are $111.3 million, and this results in an operating income of $4.7 million, which supports reinvestment and long-term sustainability. Our capital strategy focuses on maximizing outside funding sources to reduce the burden on our local customers. This year, we're leveraging significant grant and loan interest funding from PHMSA, which is the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, DWSRF, and the Clean Water Fund, CWF. I've been in front of the council many times looking for support on these bond resolutions. The major projects underway are year 3 of our $200 million sewer plant modernization, that is by Clean Water Fund. Year 2 of our $21 million gas system upgrade, that's 100% grant funded by PHMSA. 5 major water system improvements supported by DWSRF, and we're planning a relocation and expansion of the Bean Hill substation, for which we'll be pursuing a bond rating in the 4th quarter of this year. Prior to the pandemic, our average capital investment was around $25 million per year. This year, we're budgeting $94 million in capital spending, of which $31 million is from grants and $52 million is from low-interest loans, majority at 2%. NPU exists to serve the Norwich community, and we're proud to provide $2.5 million in direct and indirect support to our customers. Matching assistance and payment programs are done in a partnership with TVCCA, and our community assistance rate, which helped over 2,300 customers last year, has also had 228 customers enroll in auto pay programs that ensure payments throughout the long winter moratorium. We've also provided over $450,000 in energy efficiency rebates, including 300 electric heat pumps that improve comfort and increase load, and 187 electric vehicle rebates and charge rebates supporting clean transportation. And through the Neighborhood Assistance Act, we've redirected $130,000 in tax credits to local nonprofits, including St. Vincent de Paul and the Eliza Huntington Memorial, helping fund their energy upgrades. We're making strong progress across all major areas, advancing the water treatment plant modernization, continuing our second season of major gas infrastructure upgrades, supporting growth and electrification, the OIC project, Preston Riverwalk, and the cannabis industry. Our first grower is set to go live this month on Forest Street. These initiatives represent an unprecedented decade of investment and activity at NPU that we're just at the start of. With much of the funding already secured and a strong team in place, we're ready to execute and deliver. We presented the fiscal year 26 budget to the NPU Board of Commissioners at our March 25th meeting. The final approval is expected at the board's April or May meetings and will be included in the city budget for final adoption by the council. Do you have any questions for me or my team?
Thank you. Do either of your teammates want to address anything at this point? Or questions? Okay. One, I want to thank you. You clearly maximize the opportunities for federal assistance to move these infrastructure programs forward, and I think do so in a very timely manner. It also should be noted, there's not a lot of people in this room, but if they are watching through the television, we should talk about the fact that your utility rates for gas, electric are far less than the competitors here in the state of Connecticut anywhere, probably beyond our borders. And so for that, I thank you. Jeff, you mentioned there was a decision made concerning Preston Riverwalk, and Chris, you mentioned it, but if Jeff, you could go into greater detail. We were talking about the electric discussion that we had on that. You shared with me last week that we will be the provider for electric needs on that campus.
Yeah, no, that's something we've obviously been working with the town of Preston. We meet with them every couple of weeks, and with the tribe as well. Obviously, Chris leading that effort, and certainly through legal counsel, we do have the ability to serve. So we're just working out the details of that. So that's very exciting news. And then also through NCDC has gained control of the Norwich portion of the state hospital site as well. So puzzle pieces are coming together, and we're looking forward to contributing our piece of that.
So as in the past, we will be providing all utilities, in essence, through that area.
At least for the northern portions, we have the ability to serve, and we are working closely to get that infrastructure ready to roll.
Thank you. Members, questions? Alderwoman Gould.
What capital projects, excuse me, what capital projects do you have coming down the pipeline that we haven't heard about yet?
Right. So we have a long-term control plan, which is the planning piece for the combined sewer overflow system. And that is a 5-year update that we need to provide. DEEP never approved the last plan 5 years ago, but they're looking for the 5-year update. That requires new system flow monitoring and modeling of the system. We'll be in front of the City Council in 2 weeks with our first reading for that. So that's the one that we do have. We also are talking about, I mentioned the new substation, and that is to remove the Bean Hill substation out of the floodway and floodplain and put it in a safe place at a higher position so we don't have to worry about floods, and also have the ability to grow to meet electrification needs of some of these major projects and of consumers going forward in the future.
And cannabis industry support. I know from what I've read, I understand they're a huge electricity user. And I'm sure that you have the ability to meet their needs, but what kind of use do they have?
So for cannabis, typically hearing 1 to 2 megawatts for the ones that are looking at, we're looking at Norwich. That's what we're prepared to provide at Forest Street. We also have the ability at the Ockham Industrial Center to provide that load, and over on the London Turnpike for those, for instance. And if anything else comes along, we can look at what we can do to support.
And do we have the needs ready for a data center?
So no one has needs for a major data center. When you're looking at data centers, and I just got back from a conference, and it's a nationwide issue, is these data centers are looking at not, we're about a 50 megawatt system on average in Norwich. These data centers are looking, the small data centers at 25 megawatts, the large data centers 100 megawatts or more. And they're going in places where there's a lot of excess hydropower, cheap power down south. But due to latency, they're going to have to come to New England. Self-driving cars, fast trading, it requires quicker times and better responses on the data networks. They will be coming. We're expecting probably that 5 to 20 megawatt data centers are here, and we don't have the ability to just drop 20 megawatts anywhere in our system. We may be able to get there with some smart growth, and the new substation will allow that to happen in the future.
Okay, and I just want to reiterate, unfortunately, I'm a CLMP Eversource user, my business, and we are blessed here in the city of Norwich to have Norwich Public Utilities for their resiliency and their response time and their rates. So thank you.
Thank you. Other members, questions? Alderman Bettencourt, please.
I'll just say I'm in the same boat with our small business, and as an Eversource customer, and I do look at the rate. Of course, that's a commercial rate, but the numbers are, pretty startling sometimes, especially recently. The gap is actually enlarged. So I'm certainly, obviously happy, with the proactive approach of taking to maintenance and stuff for the power grid. Certainly that's shown over the last 10 years. It's something that, nobody realized until all the surrounding towns were out of power after an October snowstorm about 10 years ago, and that was, there's a huge difference there. So certainly appreciate those efforts and understand your investment in infrastructure, and thank you for being that foresighted.
Thank you. Other members? Alderman Singh?
Thank you very much. So again, thank you for all the work you have been doing and working with the development of the city and to making sure we can provide the needs. I think that's an asset we have, which a lot of other communities don't, and that's the flexibility we have. So if there is a need, we can get something out of the box done in Norwich. Just a quick question on this electric service calls, which are on page 123 of this booklet, the budget book we have. So I see the electric service calls and the sewer service calls almost getting doubled between 24 and 25, and 26 is kind of forecast is consistent with the projection. Wasn't really sure what's the reasoning behind it.
Right. So these are our field service teams that are going out there and responding, and we are seeing more things happening because we have more information. We have AMI systems. When somebody removes a meter, which they should not be remove meter, we send somebody out. We are being much more proactive on making sure all of our meters are working correctly, and that's a large number of those service calls are being more proactive in our maintenance and going out to these areas more often rather than waiting for someone to call us if there's a problem.
Okay.
We never used to have all that information, and we never used to actually have proactive tools to respond to some of those items.
Okay, so I guess these service calls are a good thing. Yeah.
It's going from reactive to proactive.
Proactive.
And so there's more calls.
We know your power's out before you do something.
Yes.
That's a new thing. We always wait for the phone to ring and then respond.
No, definitely. And I can tell you from my experience, just because doing business in Norwich, I probably saved a lot of money just because I had NPU servicing all my houses and even gas station. But yeah, I couldn't imagine to even survive in some of the other communities because margins are so skimmed nowadays. So thank you.
Other members, questions? Just one more. With the advent of the phase one of the sewer treatment plant being completed, I am assuming you're still in discussions to grow that population of those who would use that facility since its capacity is increasing. And will that not also help lead to the retirement of the cost if we in fact have a greater pool of users? I'm actually talking about other towns.
Yes, so any additional capacity on other towns is something that will spread the cost over more users, and there's a connection fee for any new users coming from the other towns. Preston Riverwalk, we're having discussions on what's been already been in use at that site, what's grandfathered in, and if they continue to grow out there, there will be a connection fee from the Preston development. We are seeing some minor extensions in Franklin and Basra. We've heard that Ledyard may have some issues and may need to go through Preston and come into our system as well. Senator Austin is working regionally to try to get money for these other towns to expand their systems, and every customer helps, and any large industrial customers really help.
Thank you. Again, any other questions at this time? Yeah, Ald. I'm sorry? You're pointing to Joe. Joe? No, I'm good. Thank you. All set? Okay.
Bye.
Thank you very much. You all set? Oh, you got one more. Go.
How many new customers are we adding to the public utilities roles, so to speak?
It depends on the utility. If we look at gas, for instance, we talked about gas. It's pretty level. Does this one work? Yeah. So we've talked about gas expansion, which we had that huge 25% growth historically. We add probably 50 new gas customers a year because it makes sense to do that when your system fails and things along those lines. Electric is through development, so I think run of the mill, it's probably maybe 100, 150, somewhere in that range. And then obviously there's these larger transformational developments, a lot of which we're talking about now that we're on the verge of, so, such as the state hospital, such as OIC, that could really be impactful. So that answers your question.
Thank you.
We are limited to Norwich for power and the 7 surrounding communities for water and sewer.
Right, well, I was thinking about, once the apartments on Main Street are completed, that's a new service. The Reed and Hughes being completed, that's a new service. Panema Mills, those are new services.
Yeah, as housing gets developed and more people move downtown and into some of the other, new apartments, it's a nice load. Small loads, but nice loads, if they're done well and built efficiently.
Oh, and one more, sorry. I know that in the past, we have for hurricane relief or other emergencies nationwide, we've sent crews from public utilities. How many times did we go this year, if you remember?
So the big ones were in Florida and the Carolinas and Georgia. Those are the 3 big ones from the hurricanes this year. But we occasionally will send them to Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont. What do you think about 4th this year?
4, because New Hampshire was earlier in the year because they had an ice storm and whatnot, so we were up there as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that's a great training aid for our younger linemen. We can often send a younger lineman and a more experienced lineman. Gets them some magnificent storm experience, which they're not getting on a day-to-day basis here. And it also becomes very easy for other utilities to send help our way the next time we will need it. And if we have a hurricane or a major storm, we will need it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Singh.
Sorry, one quick question. Do we offer internship programs as well, or in NPU?
So we hire seasonal workers every summer. We work with the tech schools to do some internships as well.
Okay.
We typically aren't hiring, young people right out of high school and right out or out of a trade school, or even right out of college. We're typically getting some people more experienced, but we have had some of those internships work for us, and it's very productive.
But anything like on the volunteer base for the students and stuff? Because I think it's a great, if they can create that mindset that they want to go into the stream.
Yeah, so we don't do volunteer, but we do paid internships and paid seasonals. And we have, for instance, the person who is running our metering department started off as a seasonal student way back when. The person who is our sewer collections foreman started off as a seasonal with us. The assistant city planner started off as a seasonal with us. So there are some real success stories, and you learn the work ethic. When we had our first storm, we pulled in that metering person to help us because he knew every facility that we worked on because he used to mow the grass there. He worked his way up, from grass to engineering to other duties. But it's like, all right, we need somebody in here who's quick in knowing every street and every facility. If we have a problem at the pump station, oh, that's the one over on Fairview, near Fairview Reservoir. It's a win-win, to promote some of these people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Thank you very much.
Right.
Very
Thank you
thorough.
much, and always free to ask any questions. Give us a call.
Get my stuff passed.
We're running a little ahead, so the chief is on his way from Occam. He had a meeting up there. Should be here in 5 minutes or so. So you got a couple-minute break to stretch.
Stu?
Links in there work. I noticed that when I opened it up, it doesn't work the way I expected it to.
Works good with me. I can, if I go to the page and I hit that, and I hit that, it goes right to it, which is nice.
I had to, one by one, I have to.
Yeah, this worked great. That's why I used it. I mean, the touch screen is like, I'm so used to using this now that I almost can't go back to like a Microsoft thing,
Fire.
Did you what did you tell them, just that we were running ahead?
So they have their own meeting.
I know they did.
5:30, so.
Well, if they're finished in an hour, they don't have to wait till 8 o'clock. Right, that's what we told them, right, 8 o'clock? Yeah, we'll probably be finished. I gotta turn this off.
I was actually walking out the door because I told them I had to be one. I told them I had to be one by 6:30. And then they're like, one more question, one more question. And I finally looked, I was like, no, literally, it was like 35, and then you called at 31. I was like, my way. So, yeah, that was the last one. I've seen them all. Got them all. It really is. The ice wall there, Castle, the northern wall.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. We're ready to move forward. Um,
We're going to start on page 78. And as you all know, the fire department is segmented into three, why is this doing that? Three components. One is the Norwich Fire, which all taxpayers share in the costs. The emergency management, which is the same. And then finally, the CCD component of the budget, which contains everything captain and under as far as the rest of the firefighters. So we're going to start with Norwich Fire, and everybody knows Chief Wilson. So this is his first year on the budget, and take it easy on him. Yeah. He's very good with numbers, so I'm very confident he'll be able to answer your questions. Some things we did do this year, you'll note that around the edges, we reduced replacement costs and overtime to a certain extent. And it's going to be Chief Wilson's job to see if we can meet those goals. They've been going the other way, as you know, they've been going up every year. So we're going to look at different ways, and the chief is looking at that real closely about where we would be on that. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to the chief. Chief?
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. I think I've had an opportunity just to talk to all of you, so if you don't mind, I crafted something to start off with. So good evening. Thank you guys for the opportunity to address you on tonight's budget hearing for the City of Norwich Fire Department Emergency Management. As we dive into the details of the budget, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge that this proposal was crafted prior to my arrival. I appreciate the hard work and dedication of Chief Montoya and his staff, now my staff, who have contributed to its development. I also want to recognize the ongoing financial challenges that our city faces. It's essential that we approach this budget with an understanding that about our fiscal realities, as well as the need of our community. As I step into this role, I'm committed to a thorough evaluation of the city's overall financial landscape, as well as the fire department's role within it. My priority is to ensure that we maintain a standard of coverage that meets the expectation and needs of our citizens, no matter what tax district they reside in or pass through. I firmly believe that through thoughtful planning and collaboration, we can find a path forward to not only address the current financial constraints, but also strengthens our service delivery in the future. Tonight, I look forward to discussing our budget, exploring the challenges we face, and working together to ensure the City of Norwich remains safe and thriving for all of its residents and visitors. Ready to take any questions?
Members, questions at this time? Alderman Singh.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief, and thank you for serving Norwich. Just a quick thing, I know in professional development, the request was $131,626. Was there any like specific reason for this ask? Because that's big ask from the normal one, just for the understanding purposes.
So again, prior to my arrival, the assistant chief director of training had went through with Chief Montoya and had come up with a plan for professional development for the fire department. Came up with the cost associated with that for the replacement of staffing, the cost of the class, and everything else, and they put together a proposal that they thought would fully fulfill the needs in succession planning for the department, so that we had good, strong education going forward for the future. I think really the important thing to look at when you're talking about continuing education is it needs to be just that, continuing and ongoing. They started to increase because there was just also increase of costs going on, and they had built in some things that typically we weren't planning for, or they weren't planning for in the future, like the cost to be able to send people to this type of required training. So that would be reflective in that total amount.
Okay. So you feel comfortable with the proposed, or like can we still manage like in-house trainings or?
Absolutely. I think that, there's been a lot of great dialogue that's happened within the department. Everybody knows that it's a tough financial year. So, some of the desires, I would say, have to put on the back burner. It doesn't mean that they're not going to come back again and we're not going to ask, because I'm a person that believes in professional development and succession planning. I think it allows us to even give more fully of ourselves to our community and lets us be the best public servants that we can. But in tough financial years, this is a place that's, easy for us to kind of take a back burner of some of the, succession planning. They're kind of making a little bit of change of plans, a lot more internal. We're also looking at grants through RDPT and the Region 4 to kind of maybe start working on some of those things. Maybe some doors may have been cracked open, or maybe not open until I got here, but I'm just coming with a different level of experiences that now I'm kind of pushing at the Region 4 level to see if we can participate and get some of that training done that maybe we haven't explored in the past.
Definitely, I believe same thing. During tough time, that's the time when you try to put 100% and explore all the different opportunities, which you will never do it otherwise. So sometimes hard budgets are good too. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Other members? President Pro Tem, please.
Evening, Chief. Thank you for being here. The city manager mentioned it in his introduction, replacement costs and overtime. Can you give us some broad brush stroke strategies on how you intend to contain that?
Well, just kind of in a quick, I've been here about 45 days. I think we've had a little bit of dialogue about replacement pay, about overtime. I don't think the department has a replacement pay and overtime issue. Kind of looking at the reasons why, that those costs are there, they're contractual obligations. And a contract is negotiated in good faith with the local, and then some of these things just have to be with our minimum staffing and everything else. But now going forward for the future is what we really want to tend to take a look at. We want to look at our minimum staffing. We want to kind of have an outline or an plan of how that's going to affect the bottom line. In financial times like this, tough financial times like this, we want to take a look at more overtime. When we talk about replacement pay, it's to replace that minimum staffing, right? But when we start talking about overtime, some things are discretionary, I guess, at the chief's office. Some things I would say would be, for me, non-discretionary. And when I say it's non-discretionary, it's about the mission. It's about the standards of coverage. And sometimes those things are extra duty things. So I'm being very judicious in the type of overtime that I'm approving to make sure that, especially this year, that it's going to stay on the mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other members? Alderman Bettencourt, please.
As far, we had this problem with the state, and I see the same problem here, obviously. So when you have turnover, obviously, a position stays vacant for quite a while because it takes time to get somebody on. In your case, you send them to the academy. It was the same thing with us. And you're not going to see, the hiring process alone takes, months, and then getting somebody actually in and trained so that they can do stuff takes months. So you could be looking as long as 8 months to a year before you get somebody on from the start. Yeah, six to eight months.
6 to 8 months, yes.
That's realistic. But is there any way in your mind to alleviate that? So we used to use a shift relief factor, and we always took a shot at trying to fill, stay at staffing levels at a minimum of like 85% of that shift relief factor, if you know what I'm referring to. So otherwise, but that was more of a consideration for burnout on overtime and safety than it was for budget. Are there things that we can look at as far as possibly visiting hiring practices or whatever, so that we have we reduce that time frame?
Yeah. So we actually just did that. I don't know if you're aware, we just had a certified list, and I just extended an offer to a Heroes to Heroes candidate. Can't really say who it is right now because conditional, but they're already almost done with the academy, and they will be done May 21st. And there would be no academy time. They're just going to be turnkey and ready to start. So that's one thing that I'm a large fan of. I'm also having a lot of discussion with my command staff about the possibility of who we're sending to the academy and how often we're sending them to the academy. Certainly there is no replacement to sending somebody to the Connecticut Fire Academy. It's a lot more than just, I say, getting your Fire 1, Fire 2, and everything. It basically is your first introduction into a team sport. And then and it really determines what type of employee you're gonna be. And they're our first chance at weeding out somebody that's not gonna make the grade. But what we've done now is have this certified list. They've already made the grade. They've already went to an academy, and that was part of the conditions, again, set forth before my time. Definitely be some tweaking, but these people had to graduate an academy already. So they had already been through the process, they've already been vetted, and now they're applying basically to come to the city of Norwich as a turnkey firefighter. So that's gonna be one thing that definitely reduces the time from date of hire till, foot in the door, being able to be turnkey and coming into the department. So that's standard practice around a lot of the state when, just to do exactly what you're saying is reduce that time at the fire academy. Fire academy is expensive and we're paying their salary while they're there.
So I was thinking too in terms of possibly, when you're going to have a vacancy, a retirement, say, or something, and initiate that process as soon as possible. That's what I was thinking in terms of that also.
The hard thing is human resource rules also,
Yeah.
is that,
I know.
I have a potential vacancy coming up in June.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hire for it now, just to do exactly what you're saying, because for me, that's one of the quickest things I like to do. I was a former chief of personnel and chief of operations, and as soon as that vacancy was there, believe me, I already had, conditional letters going out, and I like to have interviews done and everything else, because that does beat your replacement costs. And I said, especially at the beginning of a fiscal year, you really want to fill those vacancies so you don't start yourself in the hole, right? But at any given time, somebody can pull back their offer letter too. So the interviews will be done before this person potentially leaves. And that's something that you guys can count on with me is that I have a plan A, B, and C to make sure I fill that vacancy, because I don't want to get behind the 8 ball in replacement pay, because we are at minimum staffing.
Do you have vacancies now?
No, I'll be full staff as of May,
Okay.
end of
Whatever.
May, early
Yeah.
June, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions on this portion of the budget? If not, you want to move to emergency management?
That's on page 80, 81. Just for a little explanation, these are fractional allocations of salary based on an estimated time element that the chief and the director of training would put into emergency management. Obviously, if we have a lot of emergencies, it's going to be more than that percentage, but based on history, that's what we've allocated. So it's about a third of the full-time equivalents here. So when we see department head, that's the percentage of the salary that gets allocated here.
15 and 17% according to the.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Chief, it's whatever you want to comment on here.
Take any questions for it. It's self-explanatory.
Members, any questions regards? Alderwoman Gould?
I just wanted to ask on the communication side,
Okay.
what do we just did, all of these radio updates and CAD system updates, and what will we be using those monies for? Or is that to pay for
Paid for.
something that's already in place?
It's to keep up things that are already in place. I believe that money also goes toward our EOC and MPU and any of our communications throughout the year. I think that I'd have to go back and look. Again, I wasn't part of this budget process. I do see it's a big increase there. I'd also be curious why the big jump, but it's probably for a fee-based structure that's going up.
Ray LaRose and I recently met with Norwich Public Utilities about the radio equipment and where it's located. So we just assigned it to where the radio equipment is, and that's probably that line item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other members, anything? Thank you very much.
The next is on the CCD budget, which is on page 119. The expenditures, if you roll to page 120, are where the expenditure line items are. So as I said before, this includes all rank below battalion chief. It's 48, and there is another a little less than 5 full-time equivalents. So the firefighter personnel, when they're at full service level, would be approximately 54 firefighters, including everyone except the chief. Everyone else is in the union, so they're treated in the same capacity for personnel purposes.
So I think now that we're at this portion of the budget, if we take a look at the overtime and the replacement pay cost, you know, as somebody that's coming in and kind of looking at the budget, the fact that it's remaining consistent across the board tells me that there hasn't been any huge shifts other than contractual items, contractual increases and stuff like that that's going on. I've already taken a dive into like the sick time usage in the departments and what's kind of driving the replacement pay costs and the overtime costs. As you guys know, we're at minimum staffing. So I can tell you that the sick time use with the Norwich Fire Department is minimal. You know, it's used. You know, it's a benefit that's afforded to the members, but it's not what's exactly driving our replacement pay costs. You know, there's contractual vacation time, there's contractual sick time, and then you know the only thing that we would have to watch out for this year of an area concerned is that Connecticut sick leave policy. How that would change anything that's going on for the future here with our replacement pay costs, but. Like I said before, when answering the question about overtime, you know, there's discretionary overtime. That's something that I'm going to monitor. And then there's, you know, meeting the mission and providing a standard of coverage overtime that we just have to get the job done. Special events, our citizens expect us to show up and be there to provide services. So making sure that we're actually doing those things and fulfilling the needs of the community while balancing the budget and being fiscally responsible.
Alderman Betancourt.
Would it, you know, we're at minimum staffing, so doesn't that impact, you know, the replacement cost, period? I mean, anytime someone's out, you're gonna incur replacement costs. So we don't,
That's the age-old question, right?
Yeah.
The age-old debate.
Right.
Is that, you know,
Right, I said the 85% number, for instance.
smarter
but-
men than us have sat in rooms and debated, is it better to be higher on minimum staffing so that you're not incurring replacement pay costs and then hiring straight-time employees and having that buffer? Or is it easier to pay the replacement pay costs and avoid the fringe and the long-term
Right.
benefit and the pension and everything else? So that's an ongoing debate of, you know, what is better for the municipality? What's better for the standards of coverage? And that I think.
But when the number's 900,000, you would think there'd be some room in there for, you know, an additional position or two or whatever that would, you know, take some of that into play, you know? I'm just thinking, so.
I think that you start seeing a the number that has been thrown around frequently is 1.6. When you hire an employee, it's
Right.
1.6. Their
That was, yeah, we used between 1.5 and 1.7, depending on how things were going, yeah.
But, it's that ebb and flow that, you have to have an actuarial, like, study to figure out.
Right.
Where is that break-even point? And, that's not a number to, kind of dismiss, is almost $900,000 in replacement pay costs. But then you start asking if you bring on, say, 4 full-time employees to reduce that, you have.
Yeah, but then you incur fringe and everything else, and then, depending on scheduling, you actually have additional staff on that aren't really, they're twiddling their thumbs sometimes. I've had that happen too.
I think everybody would be engaged.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm saying. So you'd be running over the required staff. So there's some give and take there. So if you can, sometimes it may be helpful, contractually to consider those kind of issues, while we're maintaining the minimum staffing, but also making it easier to hire some people in more flexible schedules, say, so just something to consider in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Other members? We're all set. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions.
I texted Sue, sorry, told we were running.
At least you didn't show me up and show up way early. I was gonna say, if there's people waiting behind me, I'd feel late to the party.
When you estimate these things, you never know
Take it, Chief.
how they're gonna go, exactly. So they're winding up their meeting. I expect them to be here maybe 15 minutes.
Okay. I brought my laptops just so I'd have the all this crap on, I think I'd rather have the electronic. You can search for stuff.
With my luck, if I had it on my laptop, I'd.
the 75. Don't recommend doing anything like seven, everything, soft costs. Pension, take long to get here. Josh, I had texted Susan.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's,
Bob said they're on their way.
my estimate was about right. They're on their way. I want to keep you when there's nothing going on. No, absolutely not. We'll wait for that. We'll have a night when we wish we could cut them. Somebody, not necessarily anybody tonight. Right. That they go on, they wear out their welcome, so to speak. Yes. Yes, right now, who's for the big. Because I redid buildings.
Yeah, you took buildings
Yeah.
and modified it.
Right.
That was in 60. Twice we had one. Challenge is not up for us.
Now, I try my best to try to get the state to help us, but they have fear on that. The motor vehicle thing. I mean, it was totally a legislative reval didn't make us wealthier. All it did was redistribute what we had, you know, and so you get, they have this arcane thing that if the mill rate goes down, they do better. That's what they put into the formula. In fact, they did that with the finance. That's why it was $700,000. Yeah, all I wanted to, all I asked them to do was to do a set down. They wouldn't do it.
The only thing they let us add is the option to we're actually.
They did that with New Haven with the Alliance. No longer a distressed community. Haven got out of the distressed community because they're doing very well with theirs. But the state, in their wisdom, allowed them to step down. Years. They were getting. But they didn't cut their 15 million. They let it go 15, 13, 12. And that's why I said, yeah, it's just for us. This thing was no fault of ours. Physical, like capital, tangible products. Now, this thing is a little too.
Increase the assessment on those cars.
But I could also like, some of the fire. I said, it's so frustrating because everybody, including board. Just would have got the revenue and people was, as I said, it was good news and bad news. It was good for the. Well, once you're in it, there's a formula. Or out. Depending on the various parameters that the distressed community and agriculture. Calculate the total. Yeah, so there's no real erosion. But what they did was they did make a mistake. Not to go on. So much. That's why I was asking. Oh, yeah. Back there, people right now. That's when you do our but it comes down to the other. The other is the way that in the person that betrays very, very professional. That's good for you. And that's something you don't change well in 2 years. You know, whereas compared to, let's say, East Line. Capital income in East Line is a family is 150,000. So, and you don't make that up, but that's a big component long range, you'd probably go down. That's not where it was. Anything else with the rooms?
I want a chair with wheels.
When you're totally ready, turn the screen on.
Just want to turn it on when it's time? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Or are you going to start presenting? Are you going to start presenting? Susan's going to come, or Susan?
Well, I'm not doing anything without her.
Okay.
She said, don't start without me. I said,
Okay.
Don't worry, I
All right.
won't. So she's going to start hers, and then I think the third or fourth slide she wants me to talk about. Well, at least that's what she did at the Board of Ed. I assume she's going to do the same thing.
Okay. The partnership plan, that was disappointing.
What was?
The partnership plan.
I haven't seen anything.
Oh, yeah, Matt's, his group lined up plans, and it's not safe.
Really?
Yeah, check. Well,
I'll have to look
yeah,
at it
take
tomorrow.
a note tomorrow. Yeah.
That would surprise me because I came up with, without counting the runoff, because you don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Like almost promise. I don't,
Yeah, you're
That's why I
saying the
wanna make sure.
runoff might be like 9.8.
well, that's probably the difference.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're gonna have to pay that sometime. Anything.
yeah.
I wasn't bugging you, I was just giving you like a.
Oh, I joked to them, I'm like, we gotta go.
Yeah, they're all ready. Ready for you both.
We had fire department, we had public utilities. Library.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it sounds like that. All right.
First time we haven't had a,
No, last time we didn't either. We were the last ones last time too.
we had somebody, there's nobody here.
They You're all set with your presentation, so we're ready to go.
Right here.
Just know when you're ready. If you need a few minutes to set up.
I'll probably need to look.
We're gonna follow the same format we did Board of Ed.
Yeah, I can barely see that though.
Cool, there's one over there too.
I should bring it up on my computer. I won't be able to get on my computer. Oh, here we go, okay.
And you have the clicker.
All right. Hey, Joe, how are you?
I don't think this one works, Josh.
I noticed.
Oh, I think we didn't start the audio yet.
I just don't understand how he got here before
When
me.
you guys are good to go.
Okay, it's up to Susan whenever she's good.
All right.
Yeah, we can start the audio whenever.
Is it ready? Are there more council members?
try it now.
Nope, they left.
We're gonna begin
None over
again.
here.
Can you hear me?
Yep, yeah.
I can hear you now.
All right, welcome.
Mayor?
Hope your meeting was productive.
Was.
The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, city council members. All right, so I already did a run through this, so this shouldn't take us too long. I'll start with the first slide. Okay, so I just wanted to just do an overview of the budget process, meeting dates. Some of you were on these dates with us, so January 28th, we talked about district fuel, tuition, historical view, transportation, and then special education contracted services. On February 10th, we did facilities, technology, and then other tuitions, special education, transportation, and fuel. And then on February 19th, these were all Zoom meetings. We met on salary, fringe benefits, budget summary. And then on March 12th, the Board of Ed approved our 4.95% increase. So I wanted to start with talking about scores, because I know that a lot of members have asked us, just not in the community, but here, and one of the comments is, but what about your scores? So why I can't show all of our scores, one that's for Dibbles, and I just wanted to, I'm not gonna go through, I'll go quickly through every slide.
Yeah, sure, fine.
So our students are growing at a higher rate than other students across the country in terms of their early literacy skills, for example, letter ID, fluency, decoding, comprehension. More than 20% of our student population is making above average growth. This is a nationally normed and a state-approved assessment. So this is going to be K through 5, and what I want you to notice is the beginning of the year is the first on the top of each one for each school, and then the middle of the year. So we still have end of year to take this assessment, and the growth is looking very, very good for us. And like I said, we still have a long way to go, but right now, if you can see, the red is shrinking, and our yellow, green, and blue is getting bigger. So that's for kindergarten. This is grade 1. And again, the top is the beginning of the year, and the bottom is middle of the year, and soon we'll have the end of the year, at the beginning of June. So we want to see the red shrinking. It's grade 4 and then grade 5. So I'll just give you a budget overview. Our current budget is $95,680,898. Our proposed budget, like we said, for a 4.95% increase is $100,420,901. And we know that for every 1%, that equals $956,809. The Governor's Alliance proposed increase, listened to Mr. Solomon talk yesterday. He did bring up that we're going to get about a little over $2 million, and that would bring us down to 2.79% or $2.6 million. We're still hopeful that we'll get that amount. Excess cost funding options at 100%, 91%. We went through this for those of you who are at the ad hoc meeting at the end of April. We go through this every year. So we don't know what it's going to be. At one point, we said I originally, when I made the slide, I said we went with a conservative 78%. But that doesn't sound so conservative anymore, and Bob will talk more about that afterwards. Even with the $40 million additional money that the governor granted us, there was an additional $10 million to special education services, so it actually made our reimbursement less, and we'll go over that. Reduction assumption, if Alliance increase happens, 2.61% increase, we talked about that. That would give us a deficit of 1.7 million. Some certified staff reductions that we've already made is a little over $1 million, and that will be on slide 17 that we'll talk about. The total deficit with certified reductions would then bring us down to 627,491. There's a graph to show you the picture of our sections of the budget that we went over. Nothing really different from last year as far as pieces of the pie. Now Bob will do the next two slides.
Thank you. First, I want to apologize to the council because you have this big fat 80, it's 40 pages for you, but it's 80 for us because it's single-sided, and I neglected to put page numbers on it. So later on, if you do have questions, I kind of know this by heart, so we'll be able to find it without too much difficulty.
I got it on the laptop so I can search it.
Yeah, okay, so that's cool. And Susan talked about the process where we had 3 budget subcommittees. I know I speak on Susan's behalf and my behalf because several of the city council members do come to those meetings, as does the mayor when your schedule permits. You offer valuable input during the creation of the budget, and you ask good questions, sometimes hard questions, so we do appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about some of the risk items and some of the legislative items that will have big impact on our budget. And I know John and Josh follow the legislative process as much as Susan and I do because it's so impactful to us. At this point in time, the only budget document that's out there that I've found is the governor's proposed budget. We haven't had anything come out of the Appropriations Committee yet, and then after that happens, the Republicans put forth their budget, the Democrats put forth theirs, and then they haggle and we'll end up with something. So one of the big risks to our budget is the continued escalation of special education costs, both from a tuition standpoint and special services. As Susan mentioned, we've had a $10 million increase in special education costs that qualify for the excess cost reimbursement grant. And that time period goes from December 1, when we do our initial filing, and the latest update, which we do in March 1st. The way that grant works is that all districts in the state submit December 1st. Then by early January, the state publishes what your expected reimbursement was. And based on that cost statewide and that publication, our reimbursement rate was 64.19%. We had budgeted conservatively, collectively through the ad hoc committee at 70%. So not only did we not get the 91%, which is the tiered legislation, we didn't even get to 70, it fell to 64.19. Compared to the budget, fortunately, from a revenue standpoint, it didn't have impact because we our actual costs were higher than the budget, which is a bad thing, but that caused the grant reimbursement to be higher than the budget. So revenue was okay, but cost was still up quite significantly. Then during the legislative process, there was some squabbling between the governor and the legislative body, and in the end, it turned out well, and an additional $40 million was appropriated for excess costs for this year. That additional appropriation, the estimate is that Norwich Public Schools would receive $479,205. And that estimate was done before this $10 million increase. So at this point, we don't know if our $479,000 will still be $479 or if it'll be somewhat less. We received indications early last week when they released the new payments to the excess cost grant based on the March filing. So there, they told us we'll get the money early June. So that's a wait and see, which isn't a good thing when you're trying to estimate year-end balances. We also found out that because of that $10 million increase, the core reimbursement, which does not include the $40 million supplemental appropriation, dropped our percentage from 64.19% down to 62.02%. So it's continuing to plummet. The risk factor to our budget is we had 78% counting the $40 million infusion of funds. Our assumption is that since the legislative body gave it to cities and towns this year, they'll find the wherewithal to include that in next year's budget. But that's a risk. We don't know if it's going to happen or not happen. So this additional $10 million, now, if we do still have that 40 million next year, would cause our reimbursement to drop to 76% where it is this year. So that's one of our big risk factors. The ECS increase on the Alliance grant, as Susan and John indicated, is a little over $2 million. That's not because of the governor's benevolence. That's strictly formulistic in nature. The formula says this is what Norwich Public Schools is entitled to. There are 71 districts in the state that are entitled to receive an increase. There are 80 that are scheduled to get a decrease. In years past, when that's happened, the legislative body has done what we all know called hold harmless. So they find the money somewhere to prevent a decrease from happening to those 80-some towns. 3 years ago, that happened to Norwich. We were slated to get an increase of 1.3 million. Other towns were slated to get a decrease. So the legislative body did hold harmless, and our increase was reduced to 900-some thousand. I'm hoping that doesn't happen this year. If I look at the district that Senator Austin represents, I believe there are 8 or 9 towns in her district, and the only municipality getting an ECS increase is us. So I'm sure every town that's getting a decrease will lobby hard with their legislative leaders. Most of the districts getting the increase are the large cities. It's Norwich, it's New Haven, it's Bridgeport, it's Meriden. So I'm hopeful that the political clout in Hartford will make that stay. As you know, we started the Rose City School in September to better serve our students and to reduce the cost of outplacements. We started small with 2 students. In January, we had grown to 9 students. So I did a cost avoidance and cost savings analysis based on those 9 students. And it made a difference to our actual expenses for the current fiscal year of about $661,000. There were 3 components to that reduction. We had 4 or 5 actual students who had been in our budget and budgeted in outplacements. Some students were at a school called Bradley, others were at Green Valley. The tuitions and outside services ranged from $70,000 to $90,000 per student. So they were actually budgeted as outplacements. By bringing those students back, that's an actual budget savings. We do have 1 or 2 students that now are enrolled who are tuition students. So the tuition for an annual basis for our first year, we established at $70,000. On a prorated basis, it came to a little over $40,000 per student. So that revenue comes in and is used to offset the expense line item. So that's very helpful. And then we had 2 or 3 students who we classify as cost avoidance. A student was identified, and for instance, if it was student Bob, maybe my IEP would have had me go to Bradley at $75,000, but because of Rose City School, Bob now comes here, so we don't spend that money. The plan is to open up 2 middle school classrooms for next year, and as Susan will go through later on, we've factored in an additional $200,000 savings because of that activity. So Rose City Schools turned out to be a good thing. During the ad hoc committee, as the legislative process goes through, that's when we'll have to really come to grips, what should we budget for excess cost reimbursement? Right now, I know it's at 78. There are bills before the legislative body to fund excess cost at 100%. So if that happened, if that would have happened this year, the difference between, not including the 40 million, because I haven't seen that yet, But at the 62% rate versus 91%, which is the tiered approved rate already, the difference is just under $1 million. So if the state would, I'm not so concerned with the state passing new legislative initiatives to try and give us money. Just fund what's already on the law, because if we had an additional $1 million, we wouldn't be worried about a deficit. We'd have a much better budget picture. There's a bill to reduce the factor from 4.5 times the net cost per pupil down to 3. That will serve no purpose unless you allocate more money, because we just get a much lower reimbursement rate, because our entitlement will be much higher, but you still, unless you have more money to distribute, it's not going to happen. There's a bill sponsored by Darrell Wilson and Kathy Austin called HB 5823, which would allocate $2 million to the Norwich Public Schools for early childhood. Will that pass? If it does, that'll be a godsend. If it passes, then we'll get 50%.
So just so everyone is aware where the 2 million came from, is that we gave a cost analysis for our pre-K program after it moved out of Bishop, and it's over our grant by about 1.8 million. So that's the information that I've been giving Representative Wilson and Senator Austin since October, November of last year. So that was one of the reasons that Darrell put that, and Senator Austin.
There is a change in the school readiness formula. We don't know what the final impact of that will be. Will it result in more funding to Norwich Public Schools for our pre-K program, or will it result in less? Our pre-K director, Corey Beckwith, is following that and working through the formulas. It's a whole new formulistic way of allocating pre-K funds.
It means you'll have more competition for less dollars statewide.
Yeah.
Because some towns are too small, they'll have to join other districts, including Norwich. Preston may in fact be one of those, but it's not manna from heaven in any way, shape, or form.
We might be teaming up with Ledger. We're looking into that now.
The larger pool we represent, the more opportunity we have to hold on to that portions of the grant. Previously, we got 2.3 million. I know I signed the grant, and you are my co-signer as the superintendent. But again, we haven't seen anything on that yet. I just know the changes are moving forward. Been talking with Linda Allen, who's our representative from Learn. It means there's more competition, and actually a greater invitation for others to join in to partake in the funding, not necessarily more dollars.
And as the mayor said, the grant is 2.3 million, but that includes, I think, the funds that go to the private sector. And then
Yes, it does.
the grant is based on allocated spaces, and it's very difficult in some of our schools to meet the target for allocated spaces because of space requirements and space constraints. You might have a school that says, and I'm going to make up a number because I don't know them, you get 20 spaces at X number of dollars. Well, at that particular school, the maximum we can have is 16. So we're never going to see that fund, those funds that are in the grant. So it's probably a fair description of school readiness funding to call it fluid and unknown. And that will be impactful for us. And as Susan said, we spend far more than that in direct costs and indirect costs. So that's probably the reason why Darrell and Kathy, in conjunction with conversations with the administrators at Norwich Public Schools, has a bill in there for $2 million. So we're hopeful. Health insurance is in our budget at 15%. We've met with our broker and
Almost
Josh.
16.
Our recent allocated rates are 16.86%.
Okay.
So we're exploring ways to reduce that, both for our employees and for us. We're not sure if we can do anything about that for next year. The Board of Ed also has some high-cost claims that are causing us to have to look forward-thinking to replenish the self-insurance fund. In 2021, when we were in a surplus situation, in 1 year, we contributed $2.7 million to the fund. The following year, we contributed another $983,000, which brought it up to a 2-year total just 3 years ago of $3.6 million. Board of Ed now is in $2 million from a claim standpoint that we have to make up over the next 3 years. So that's going to be a future budget impact. And as Susan said, we're continuing to look at transportation to reduce costs. We were hopeful to have a meeting with the senior leaders and management of First Student prior to our meeting tonight, but that didn't happen. We've pressed them for that meeting. And all of this leads us to where we are tonight.
Also with the transportation, we're collecting data where we've collected data on, we're doing opt-in with the families instead of opt-out, so they have to opt into transportation because we're finding, for example, when I go to NFA, there's very few students on the buses. So we're going to try to save some money with looking to see our data for the opt-in. So we'll continue to work on that. All right, so just for a recap, tuitions are at 38.8%, NFA 3.7%, Griswold 3.5%. Our special education outplacements are 111 students at a little over $9 million. This is actually a decrease of 1.8 from the 24-25 school year. And again, Bob already talked about excess costs. We know that NFA's increase, there's nothing we can do about that, or Griswold's. And I know appreciative of the city manager going to 1% for us when we thought we were going to be flat budgeted. This is his recommendation yesterday. But I just want to notice those numbers. 1% wouldn't even cover the increase in the high schools. So I want to go back in time. So this was from last year, and I just wanted to remind everyone of all the cuts that we had to make back in the 24-25 school year. And we had to, instructional coaches, that was for ELA, math, and social emotional coaches. We had to cut 4. Our reading and math specialists, we had to reduce by 26. At the time, we did not eliminate MLL coaches or MLL teachers, nor special education teachers. As far as our UAs, we did eliminate 2 music teachers, 1 librarian, 1 PE teacher. And then for school counselors, we eliminated 5, social workers 2, and then some pen pals, which was an elective that we eliminated. And then assistant principals, we eliminated 4 at the middle school level, at the elementary school 1. And then special education supervisors, which are also considered administrators, we had to reduce that by 3. So I just want to remind everyone this is what we did last year. So, and what I just said, that's a summary of everything that I just said, of the reductions from last year. So central office eliminated positions from last year. We did not replace an admin assistant in HR that resigned. We did not replace the volunteer position that resigned. We eliminated student services office manager. We eliminated 1 residency officer. We eliminated the payroll manager. We replaced the director of communications with the communications coordinator and combined responsibilities with volunteer position. We hired a part-time Medicaid admin assistant to replace a full-time. And we moved 3 admin directors to coordinator positions, which were, they were 12-month employees. We moved them down to 210, which is the assistant principal line, because we realized that that was not a sustainable position.
Excuse me? Just one quick question. Eliminated 1 residency officer. How many did you have?
2.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the slide I was talking about when I showed you one of the first few slides. This is what our staff reductions for next year. As everyone knows or should know by now, that when we have to eliminate, we have a contract to go by for our certified staff. So we had to let the Board of Ed know of the non-renewals today at today's Board of Ed meeting. So there were 3 dean positions that we eliminated, 3 MLL coaches. 2 of those coaches are moving into an MLL teaching position and 1 to an elementary teaching position. We eliminated 2 elementary school counselors, 2 social workers, and there's more possible reductions in non-certified positions, which we don't need to do right now. What I left off there, I realized after I did this presentation for the Board of Ed, is that we also have reduced 2 second grade teachers, 1 at Mahan and 1 at Wequonic, because the grade 1 class sizes were low. So for grade 2, we eliminated 1 in each building. so that we can combine. And I'll give you an example. One class had 10 students, another had 9. So we collapsed that classroom in 2 schools. So we eliminated 2 classroom teachers. The good news on here is that, other savings from attrition is two teachers retired. We are going to eliminate 5 pairs by attrition, and I put the historical average of pair attrition over the summer is about 13. So 5 should be comfortable for attrition. Rose City school savings, the good news is, like Bob mentioned before, we're adding 2 middle school classrooms, and that's going to give us an approximate savings of about $200,000 right now. So here's the budget for NFA and Griswold tuition increase. So if you notice the highlighted numbers for the increase, if you just look at the total NFA tuition cost, last year it was at 27 million, a little more than 27 million. Projected for 25-26 is about 29.5 million, and that's 2.6 increase of our overall budget. The NFA special education increased by $1.4 million, and that was due to getting many students that came in. I think Bob mentioned how many states. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll just add a little background to that. When we did last year's budget with conversations with NFA and our special ed department, we ended up with a budget in special ed of 224 students. When the school year started, that number grew to 236. So there was an increase. We did a deep dive into what happened and where did these students come from. We found out that there were actually 35 new additions to the NFA program, but yet only a net gain of 12 students. So that meant 23 students who we anticipated being there were now somewhere else in the world being educated. And they went into higher cost programs. So that was a big driving force behind the 1.4 million. As you know, regular education we know in advance what the bill is going to be next year, barring a challenge of a residency, because it's based on October 1 of this year. October 1 of this year compared to October 1 of the previous year has an increase of 12 regular ed students. So that added about $188,000 between the 12 new students at $15,000 plus per year, and then the price increase. So that's the reason NFA went up that much. Plus they have a 3.7% tuition increase, which is much higher than what the school district ends up getting. And as Susan said, when we have budget reductions, we end up balancing the budget on K through 8 because the outpriced tuitions for mostly high schools, they are what they are.
So total Griswold regular ed increased $278,588, and then for their special education, $333,000. That 929. So this is my last slide, and I just want to remind everyone that the amount of students that we service here in Norwich, pre-K through 8 is 3,228 students. And then we also have our NFA and all our other participating schools that our students go to, and that's another 2,086 students. And for those students, I think people realize that they're special education, we're required to make sure that we're still providing them with services. We have liaisons that work with those schools to go to PPTs and take care of IEPs. So we're still responsible for all those students.
And I did leave out one piece of information related to the influx of new students to the NFA special education program. When I said we did a deep dive, Ed Peckham went through every single student that was new to the district, and they came from 11 different cities within Connecticut and 6 different states, and the states ranged from Florida on the southernmost part to Montana as the westernmost point. So it was quite an eye-opener to look at it in that degree of depth.
Thank you. Members, questions? President Pro Tem.
So I want to drill down on one thing on this slide. Hopefully you can help my understanding. So I'm looking at the technical schools, right? We send kids to, obviously, to Norwich Tech, but also down to Grasso and to Wyndham. I know that the capacity of those schools is depending on which one you're talking about, somewhere between 700 to 800 kids. Yet, we're only sending 232 kids, and we're actually a host community for one of the tech schools. I'm just wondering if you know, I'm not saying that it's your fault, I'm saying if you know why more Norwich kids aren't going to the tech schools, because that really helps us because it's free, other than the transportation.
So I think one of the reasons is not all our kids, our students get accepted into those schools. And I think that's why at one time they opened up Wyndham to see if they would accept students. We are going to start, we're not going to be sending our students to Wyndham anymore. We're going to eliminate that school, so it's just going to be Norwich Tech, and because of the transportation services all the way to Wyndham. But I think one of the reasons is because they're not being accepted, and I think it's hard for our special education students to be accepted into those schools as well.
Well, I can tell you, because this is, obviously, you know, I still work for that district. And it is public information that, yes, the tech schools statewide get anywhere from 2.5 times to 3 times the number of applicants than we have capacity for. Just the same, in Norwich alone, where there's room for 700 and some kids, only only a portion of 232 are getting in. Now, I could tell you that the selection process has been the subject of much debate and angst. The district is moving to finalizing a plan where it will be pretty darn close to just a straight-up lottery. But I'm just surprised that more Norwich kids aren't getting into the 3 tech schools. I respect your decision about Wyndham. Wyndham's going to be getting a new school. Who knows where they're going to build it? If it's in the northern part of Wyndham, that could easily be a 40 to 45-minute ride each way for Norwich kids after they get picked up, right? So I could see some rationale, but the construction of that school is, yeah, at least a couple of years off. But in the meantime, Norwich is a wonderful school. I've taught in all 3 of those schools. Norwich and Grasso are magnificent facilities. But again, I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me that only 200 plus of our kids are getting into these schools when we have the 2,000 and change that are in high school age.
Was it this year or last year that they applied the new rule where they only can apply to 1 tech school? Is that new this year? I thought that you couldn't, it used to be that you could apply more to 1. Now I've heard that you can only apply to 1.
So, and I don't mean this in a negative way towards my district or towards the situation at all, but and I absolutely hate this phrase because it's used so often, but they're still building that plane while it's flying, right? So there have been a number of hiccups along the way with the way the selection process works. Rules are implemented and then they're immediately abandoned because it violates what the legislature has told the district needs to happen, or actually what the legislature and the governor have told the State Department of Education to tell us the way it needs to work. I did hear that rule went into effect. I can't say for certain that it is still in effect. That's not part of my responsibility to the district, so I won't weigh in with any kind of authority. But I will say that I do know the reason for it was that if you can apply to more than 1 school, then you can be accepted to more than 1 school, and now you're taking up a spot that would otherwise go to someone else, right? Because you can only attend one of the schools, one of the tech schools that we send to. So that was the rationale behind it. Makes perfect sense from a pragmatic point of view, right? But does it comply with the rules that are being enforced? And that's the question mark. I can't say for sure one way or the other. So I don't know that there is anything or what we could do about that, but I do believe, looking at that number, that more Norwich kids should be going to the tech schools. Never mind aside from the fact that it saves us a bunch of money, okay, that's really secondary to the fact that it's a unbelievable educational environment that our kids could really, really benefit from, especially if they have no desire to go to college.
Those are all good points, and I'm just going to throw a little monkey wrench and go off the rails a bit on transportation. So the Board of Education elected a couple years ago to stop transporting to out-of-district magnet schools to save money. We're letting the kids who were enrolled already finish out. So if you look at ACT, which is a magnet school in Willimantic, we have 7 students going there. Well, last year's legislation put a cap on what the schools could charge, and I don't remember the number offhand in my head. I'd have to do some math, but to go to ACT might be $4,000 or $5,000. So if students chose not to go there because families couldn't transport them, that means they're going to go to NFA, Griswold, or Norwich Tech. If they go to NFA, I did the math, and it came out, we'd pay $109,000 in tuition versus what we pay in ACT. I measured that against the cost of a bus, and the bus is $75,000. So you're at the break-even point. If 2 or 3 more students went to ACT, then we'd probably encourage the board to change a policy again, because it's beneficial to not go there. So it's this balancing act, and if, to your point, if more students went to Norwich Tech, that's less tuition we're paying. And the legislation that was passed last year was supposed to eliminate the 58% cap and have it drop down to 0. But at the end of last year's legislative session, they put an amendment in to take that out. So fortunately, we're still only paying 58%, and the magnet school tuition budget will not increase this year on a per school basis because it's capped at the 23-24 rate. So those are the dilemmas that we wrestle with as a board in making as an administrative unit, making recommendations to the board, as we try to look at every detail like that.
Yeah, I mean, and make no mistake, the list of schools that are there are all good, better, best, great institutions, and kids get a great education. Not at the risk of sounding a little bit for a commercial, as a commercial for the tech schools, but the tech schools, we see ourselves as poverty busters, right? Because the kids are getting career training that takes them out of jobs and into careers, right? And it can cause generational shifts, in their outcomes, right? It is a little disappointing to me that not more Norwich kids are getting that opportunity, aside from the budgetary impacts that it has. So, but I don't know that there's much that we can do about that. Thank you.
Thank you. In my first term, Irby Dolliver and I went to Hartford to argue that very concern, and we were met then with their reason, and I'm sure it hasn't changed. They kind of got away from the mission that the pro tem outlined, which is more significant and needed more than ever before with the shortage in trades. They started seeing themselves as a college prep high school, and there's that mentality right from the top front office, and that has not changed, and that's part of the problem. And so the entrance exam reflects that. They weed kids out, and that's just what they're still doing. That's my view of it.
Well, the good news is the entrance exam has been eliminated from the selection process
that
for
is
that
good.
reason. Yep.
Good. That is great news. Thank you.
When did that start, Joe? When did that start?
Oh, entrance exam, the number that pops in my head is 3 years ago, but it might even be longer. Right. It's personal note. I can't believe that I've already been there 8 years. So it might be longer than 3 years ago.
Members, Alderwoman Gould.
So I want to follow up on this. Why aren't our students being accepted? Has anybody ever reached out to the technical schools? If they have the capacity, if, like Joe said, the entrance exam, whatever that formula was, has been eliminated, why aren't our kids getting in?
I can tell you that sometimes has to do with behavior, where sometimes kids have been accepted and then they've been expelled, or they've gotten in trouble with suspensions and they're not accepted.
So, and again, to address that, Stacy, so the equation for how kids get on the list for the lottery is completely changing. Behavior is no longer going to be part of what gets reported from the middle schools. Academic record, they just have to show, the school that they come from has to show that they graduated the 8th grade. That's it. There's a lot of the rule changes. It's really becoming just literally a straight up lottery. You used to have recommendation from your guidance counselor. You had to write an essay, all that good stuff. Well, for a lot of different reasons, those tasks were classified as discriminatory and therefore are slowly but surely being eliminated. And it will be fill out the application, have all your puzzle pieces in place in terms of you're graduating from the 8th grade and you can attend high school, and then your name goes in a hat, and we have room for 700 kids, they pull 700 names.
Okay. Well, because like Joe said, it is the opportunity to go from having a job to having a career. And if EB is running ads during the Super Bowl looking for workers, and I don't think those ads are inexpensive, we need a pipeline to help feed EB with those jobs, with those workers, because those are good-paying jobs with benefits that is a career.
I'm sorry, Alderwoman Hayes.
Right, so following up with this conversation, but expanding it, because one of my understandings is that students can be accepted, and I won't just limit it to the tech schools, they can be accepted to a school of choice. But if they go there, and I'm not talking behavioral, I'm talking about language issues and or other barriers, if that school cannot provide for that student, where do they revert back to? Who has to take them? MFA. So a student can get accepted, but if the accepting school says we can't provide the language, additional language, English language learning opportunities, that child is exited out. And that is continuing to be an issue. So it's more than just the entrance exam. It's more than just, are they preparing kids for careers? I'm going to say we need to talk to our legislators to say, when do you level the playing field that public schools have to take students regardless, and you allow other institutions to pick and choose even after they're accepted. So the lottery doesn't really excite me. If a school can still say, after I accept you, we can't service you, so you have to go back into your district and go to the school that will accept you or has to accept you. That's part of this nightmare or this revolving door that's happening. And I'm not just picking on one institution. We're seeing it across many institutions that have a choice to do that.
Thank you. Other questions? Alderman Singh?
Thank you very much. So I just want to thank you for all the insight, and thank you, Bob, for always working with our city and trying to understand the battles we face in our budget. So that coordination is really helpful. Of course, we'll have more in-depth conversation in our ad hoc committee, but overall, I think you have shown a lot of courage to some extent, working on a lot of things, cutting positions and making sure that we can create a healthy budget. And I also want to highlight 30% of the budget you just don't have any control over with the high school. There's no control over 30% of the BOE budget. But coming to one of the point about technical schools, right? So there's a lot of manufacturing job fairs and career fairs that happen in Norwich and nearby area. I think one of the things we can definitely do is create more awareness, and not just for the kids, but even for the parents, that, these are some of the good avenues that we can avail, and we have those things in Norwich. Uh, So we should definitely try to get in touch with a lot of manufacturing companies as well, and different organizations which are facilitating these kind of career fairs as well. So they kind of understand behind their mind that, even though kids are not that serious in this age, so parents can definitely motivate and guide them as well. So that'll be my only suggestion. Thank you, though.
Thank you. I've also asked the two middle schools to get the data from the 8th grade counselors on where they're applying and if they're getting in and such things like that. So hopefully that data will drive us in some of the directions that you've all brought up.
Thank you. Alderman Bettencourt.
So what I've, off the track of the, the trade schools, because, there's nothing we're going to solve there tonight, but what I've heard Bob and Susan, you say is that basically there's, as far as the revenue stream for the agency goes, from the state side anyway, that there's a lot of stuff still in the air. And it's, unless you're Nostradamus.
My anticipation is we'll probably have a final Board of Ed budget either the first Monday in June or the second Monday in June, unless the state legislative body makes it clear that we're going to get our 2.1 million, we're going to get something in the pre-K bill. ECS formula is going to be adjusted somewhat. There's a bill before the legislative body to adjust ECS formula, and there's I think 5 components of that bill. One is to change the base foundation for each student. It hasn't changed in 10 or 12 years. I don't know the number off the top of me. It's $11,500 some dollars. The proposal is to increase that amount by $953 per student. If that single item in that bill passes, that would give Norwich another $4 million. I don't think it's going to, but if they go to $500 or $200, it would be helpful. There are 4 other factors related to number of English language learners you have, the poverty level of the district, number of free and reduced lunches, and it's a very complex and convoluted formula where if you exceed a threshold, there's a 35% credit. If you exceed this threshold, it's 40%. On every one of those 4 criteria that would go up, because of Norwich's demographics, we would score highly, so we would get more money. The end result of this entire bill passing in its entirety would give Norwich $11 million. We know that's not going to happen, but I hope that 20% of it happens. So 20% of $11 million would be a really good thing for us. So there's a lot of impactful pieces of legislation that impact the public schools, which impacts the overall city budget that can either make or break us. And we won't know until they take action. And we'll get some clarity once the Appropriations Committee sends something forward. We might know, for instance, that the $2 million pre-K bill is dead, or, well, we're going to get $1 million maybe, or $500,000. There also is a bill that I'm sure you're aware of that doesn't impact our Board of Ed budget, but would have impact on maybe the building project or something. There's a bill for the legislative body to allocate $5.5 million to renovate and make structural improvements to the adult ed building on Hickory Street. If that passes, then it might need to be modified because we don't intend on renovating Hickory Street, because I think the city's intent is to sell that building and have affordable housing go there, which would enhance families to walk to New Greenville School. But that bill's out there, and its bill number is 5545. So maybe that'll pass too, which would help the city. Maybe help the building project, we don't know.
Obviously, we've had some conversations about that in the last couple months because of the need for, as far as addressing some of the adult ed shortages.
Yeah.
But we're limited by the referendum, obviously. So that kind of situation could possibly, you could use that to address that. So that
So
would
my
be a
worst
good thing.
nightmare is the legislative body approves $5.5 million and it can only be used to renovate adult ed at Hickory Street.
Right, I don't know who's the sponsor of that legislation,
Kathy
is it Kathy? So, and I know we talked about that, I don't know, maybe a month ago, but that was, because she recognized the need.
Yeah.
So,
I think in conversations that Susan had.
but we probably need to up,
Misspeak, it was too late to change the language.
yeah, oh, really?
Yeah, they would have to be changed after it passed if that's possible.
Special session, yeah, so they can
But I
amend
can
it.
see why she wanted to do something, because there was a lot of community outcry on how we don't
Right.
have enough.
How big a waiting
allow
list do you have for adult ed right now?
Say again?
How big a waiting list do you have for adult
It's
ed?
not as big as it was last year. I believe it's in the hundreds. At one time, it was like 400 at one point, but I know.
We're on
so
the
there's-
waiting list?
Yes, but now they have a new program or a new organization that opened up. They were at Three Rivers, and they moved.
Eastern Savings Bank.
Yes. What's the name of?
City Learning Center.
Rose City Learning
Yep.
Center.
So they just took a lot of students that were on the waiting list. That was good.
Excellent.
There's some former educators that used to be at our adult ed program that went off.
But obviously, it would behoove us to be in touch with our legislators and make sure that, we come up with a plan that's workable for everybody.
I think it's a good thing that we have Kathy and Darrell.
Yeah, absolutely.
In end of January or early February, the State Special Select Committee on Special Education did a tour around the state. They went to three or four sites. And
I was there.
they were at.
I was there, yep.
Three Rivers Community College, so we went and testified, and there were probably, besides, I know the mayor was there, Joe, I think, was there too, and others. There were probably 7 or 8 members of the panel who were state legislators, and some participated by phone, and we testified, and maybe the voices were heard, because at some point after, that's where the $40 million came from.
That is correct.
It helps.
It did have an outcome that was favorable.
Yeah.
1 year only, but 1 year earlier, he had proposed the following year. And the legislature said, no, we're doing it this year.
It's hard to fathom that the state would give districts $40 million this year, nothing the following year, and then reinstitute $40 million the third year.
Doesn't make any
It just
sense.
makes no common sense at all.
No comment. Someone might be listening. I want to thank you all for the effort on rebuilding the preschool program that was cast aside several years ago by someone else who remained unmentioned. I think Corey and everything that's happening there is great. So I want, if you'd let her know, I'm very grateful for
We're
that effort, that
happy to have her.
restoration. What you talked about, the disparity, if representing $11 million, I think that actually demonstrates how far the education cost-sharing formula has fallen from being true to the needs of this particular school district. Because when Malloy created Alliance and Network funding, they froze our local grant, and any increase we got was now being funneled through those 2 new programs, and then they got rid of Network, left us with Alliance, and we were always left wondering how much we're gonna get. But it really limited the local grant for the other kids. So, I mean, it's a problem. It is. And we shouldn't forget the federal component, the lack of attention, acknowledgement as far as special ed funding from the feds. It's woefully underfunded from what they're supposedly the magic mark of 40% nationally. They're nowhere near it. They don't even talk about it still. We talk about it, but I guess they're not listening.
As your point is well taken, the state has made so many adjustments and tweaks to the ECS formula, and every year there's legislative proposals. About 6 weeks ago, I went to conference where one of the topics was the ECS formula, and there's a gentleman who's now retired from the state, I believe, but he's working as a consultant. His name's Kevin Chambers. He's been there a long time, and he is like the guy who knows this formula inside and out, and he thinks it's very simple. But the presentation he did, there were 8 or 9 schools, unnamed, but with alphabets, and I knew on the tables he was presenting, school District H was Norwich. The reason I knew that was because of the number of students attending an endowed academy, and there's only 2 schools in the state, and that's Woodstock and NFA, and I knew our numbers up there. And I actually learned that night that we end up getting, and this was added a couple of years ago, we get about $611,000 added to our ECS formula because of our students that attend the Endowed Academy NFA. So that was a good thing. I think I can still have the presentation. I'd be glad to send it to everyone. It's not a simple formula. Kevin thinks it is, but he lives and breathes this thing, and he's probably the most expert person in the state on the formula. And it's very hard to follow, and whoever dreamed
It hurts your head when you try to follow.
It just hurts your head, it really does.
I just want to add that since I've come in this position and worked with Bob, we really appreciate the collaboration that you have and the support that you've given us. So I just want to thank you all for that. And we really, Bob and I, look forward to the ad hoc meetings. We truly enjoy them, so we'll look forward to the first one.
Any other questions from anyone?
The information that you presented tonight, is that in here?
No, but I will send it, I'll email it to all city council members.
That would be helpful.
There are pieces like the pie chart, all that information is in there. The NFA numbers are all in there, but the other stuff is new.
Okay,
I'll forward it to you.
great, thank you.
And should you have any questions individually in the interim between now and the ad hoc meetings, please feel free to email any one of us or call us.
More importantly, we need to call our state call our state reps to get that at least 20% of the 11 million that's
I mean,
potentially could be funded. I mean,
And we still do, I regularly speak with Senator Austin, Representative Wilson. As a matter of fact, she was just texting me at the Board of Education meeting, talking more about the bill for pre-K. So we have been going back and forth whenever she needs any kind of information. I typically drop everything for her, make sure I get it to her as quickly as possible. Same with Representative Wilson.
Ditto.
just to touch on the amount of legislation related to education, CASBO has a liaison whose job is actually legislative liaison, and they send us all the bills. There are 37 pages of bills that just affect education. Some are duplicates, like there might be 4 legislators who put in a bill for fully funding excess cost, and you can't even keep up with them. And there's some that slip through the cracks that you don't know anything about until it gets passed, and you go, how did that get in there?
Well, I hope there's no unfunded mandates in there,
You had enough
Hold
of
your
those
breath.
already.
because I think we have enough of those already. And if they just fully funded us to what the law says,
That's my only hope. That's my
Jackie says,
short-term
as the
hope.
federal government that won't fully fund what their laws say for them to fund.
You know, I can't tell you what page it is, but there's an analysis of excess cost in there. And our uncapped entitlement at 100% would be $3.3 million. Right now, we've received $2,103,000. So that's a difference of just under 1.3 million. Now, that'll be mitigated somewhat if we receive the $479,000, but all I'm asking for is pay what you've passed in the law.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're excused. I have to wait for my friends to say we're excused. We're excused. Have a great evening.
Anything.